Hi everyone! So it is November and that means a new TBR video. It also means everyone is scrambling to try and read all of the books that they didn't read the rest of the year, and that is exactly what happened to me. I have got a pretty ambitious TBR pile for November. I have been a little busier than lately, so while this would normally be like a pretty average TBR for me, lately this would be definitely on the larger side. I'd also like to mention that I pretty much made this TBR within the last 5 minutes before setting up the camera. So this is all very last minute, easily changeable throughout the month because this is just what I felt like reading today. Tomorrow it might be completely different. But let's first start off with the book that I'm currently reading, and that is Daughter of Deep Silence by Carrie Ryan. This is kind of like a rollover from last month because I didn't get around to finishing it in October, so hopefully I will finish it now. This is a YA mystery novel, I would say, and I don't really know how to explain it. The story itself isn't confusing, it's just kind of confusing to explain what it is. Basically, we follow a girl called Frances, and she was on like a yacht kind of cruise with her friend Libby and her parents. While they're on this boat, it ends up being attacked, and everybody on this ship is murdered except for Frances and the governor and his son, who Frances had a little bit of a romance with while she was on this cruise. So when the governor and his son are rescued, they make up this story that the ship was taken down by a like rogue wave and this whole attack never actually happened, and like the boat and all the passengers were never recovered, so nobody has any idea what happened except for what the governor and his son are saying. But Frances knows the truth and she doesn't know why they are trying to cover it up. But Frances ends up meeting Libby's father, and he decides that Frances should pose as Libby and pretend like Frances actually is the one who died, and they are going to try to uncover why the governor is hiding this story. Like I said, it's a little bit confusing to explain what it is, but when you're actually reading it, you completely understand what's going on. Currently about 130 pages into it, so it's a little soon to decide exactly how I feel about it. Right now I'd say I'm at like a 3.5 star rating, so it's pretty good. The book I have is another rollover from October, and that is Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. This is a assassin novel, I believe. I'm not really sure. I've never read a Jay Kristoff book before, but I've heard nothing but amazing things, so I am very much looking forward to hopefully getting around to reading it this month. And this is new adult, I believe, which is a genre that I've been trying to get more into reading lately. Then I have the second and third book in a series that I started in October. They are part of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. So the first book was called The Silver Eyes, the second book is called The Twisted Ones, and the third one is called The Fourth Closet, which is very confusing because it's the third book but it has the word fourth in the title. It's like that Prydain series. The first book in it was called The Book of Three, and I remember trying to request it from the library, and the librarian was just getting so confused as to the title, but it was the first book. Very confusing time. Anyways, like I said, I started this series in October. I read The Silver Eyes, and I explained what the series is about and what it's based after. It's based off of a video game. I'm not going to explain it again here because I explained it a good 3 or 4 times in October, so we're just going to let that be. But I really enjoyed the first book, so I wanted to move on to the second and third one. I don't know if this is a completed trilogy or if they're going to write more books. Either way, I'm reading these two. Next book I am specifically saving to read on Thanksgiving Day because it's written by one of my favorite authors, and it is a mystery novel, which I just think are the coziest kind of books, and Thanksgiving is a really cozy time. And that is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. I don't know what this book is about outside of it follows a bunch of passengers on a train and somebody gets murdered, and they just know that the murderer is on the train, and I'm assuming it's going to be one of them. Love Agatha Christie's novels. Her writing is absolutely amazing, and so I wanted to pick up this book, and I also really want to watch the film, so maybe that's another thing I will do this month. But yeah, I'm saving this specifically for Thanksgiving. Next book I have on my TBR is Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is one of my most anticipated books to read this year. The sequel to it, I believe, is coming out in November, so that is why I was saving it to read this month, because I thought it was just going to be a duology. Apparently it's a trilogy now, which is kind of unfortunate because I have a horrible memory when it comes to books, so I was saving this one to read when the sequel comes out so I can just read them together and not forget what happens in the first book, Looks like that might be what's gonna happen anyway, but we will see. To be honest, I don't really know what this book is about. Marissa Meyer is one of my favorite authors. I've read all of her books except for her graphic novel series, but all of them have been retellings. This one isn't. I think it's just sci-fi, and I want to say it follows like morally gray kind of characters, like sort of villains maybe. I could also just be making that up. Either way, I'm very excited to read it, basically. Marissa Meyer is one of my favorite authors, so I have a feeling this book will not disappoint. And the final book on my TBR is a nonfiction story. So for those of you who don't know, November is usually known as Nonfiction November, where everyone tries to read a lot of nonfiction books. I'm not a very big nonfiction reader, and as I said, I have a lot of other books that I really need to get to this month that are obviously fiction. So I did want to include at least one nonfiction book on my TBR this month, and that is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. This book is nonfiction, but it follows two stories. I don't know exactly how this is written. I hear that it's like written like a fiction book, but it is nonfiction. Not really sure what that means, but it follows, I believe, the man who created the Chicago World Fair, and then it also follows H.H. Holmes, who was America's first known serial killer during the time of the Chicago World Fair. So yeah, I'm not really sure what to expect from this book because, like I said, it reads like a fiction book, but I'm pretty sure it's nonfiction. Might have to fact check that, but I'm pretty sure that it is. Either way, I'm very interested in reading it, so it's on my TBR for this month. So yeah, I guess that concludes this video. Leave me a comment down below and let me know what book you are most looking forward to reading in November. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books before and what you thought of them. And I will see you in my next video. Bye!